Hey College Success, this is your video for week 13 of the semester. So we are almost done. We really are starting to wrap up at this point. I know that this is Thanksgiving week, but unfortunately because of the way our semester is set up, we still have work this week. So hopefully you can get it done at the beginning of the week so that you can enjoy the holiday with friends and family or just relaxing or whatever you need to do that week. All right. So week 13 runs from the 23rd through the 29th, and you can see that we are in chapter 6 this week, and you have 2 assignments to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint for chapter 6 and go through that and go through a couple websites and things that are connected with that. So chapter 6 is all about mapping your path, so kind of knowing where you're going and what you're doing academically. So the first part of that is creating an academic plan. So meeting with your advisor is key, and hopefully if you haven't already kind of planned your spring schedule, you want to go ahead and meet with your advisor and do that soon. Because they're going to help you be able to strategically plan your classes. They know what course offerings are coming up, especially once you get into your major. Only certain classes, they might be offered in spring only. And so if you don't take it in spring, you have to wait a whole other year. Your advisor will know that stuff. And they're also potentially part of your network. They can be a mentor. They can be a reference. And so knowing who your advisor is and checking with them is really important. If you don't know who your advisor is, in my Stark State, a quick look, and I think we've looked at this already before, but if you go to My Academic Plan, if you click in there and it brings up your information, you have your advisor information right there. That's a quick way to see, and their email address is right underneath that. So that is a nice way to kind of look and see, all right, who is my advisor again? And really do encourage you to try to get in touch with them sooner than later, because the closer we creep to the end of the semester, the busier people are with grading and getting things done. So it might be tricky to get in to your advisor the closer you get to weeks 15, 16 of the semester. So from there, you also need to know what courses you have to take to graduate. And a quick way to get to that is if you're at the Stark State homepage. Again, I know that we've gone over this stuff before, but just academics, and then you find your career community. I'll just click in education. Once you get in there, all of these are set up very similarly. Again, you'll go down, it has lots of information about the major, the certificates, who to contact, and then you'll see like specific programs. So you click on the program that's yours, whatever field you're in, and then you'll see a link for courses right there. And it'll help you it'll pull up a PDF. And this will go through like all the classes you need to take, how many classes, what are your co-recs, your prereqs, how many credits ultimately you'll be working on, are there electives. So it'll give you all that information. And that's also something that your advisor will talk to you about, as well as, are you going to have to go get your bachelor's degree after leaving here, or maybe even further. So it's good to know that early on so you can make that plan. So again, you want to know how many credits, how many electives, how many requirements, are you also minoring in something? So knowing that ahead of time is really helpful. If you don't know that information, it's important to start getting that information, as well as, is there a GPA goal? Is there some kind of licensure exam, something along those lines? So also chapter 6 talks about online courses, asynchronous versus synchronous. We are in an asynchronous class. You are completing assignments at any time of the day, because not everyone is logged in at the same time. Now you have due dates, but you're not all scheduled, logged in, kind of like a Zoom meeting. You're not all here at the same time. Synchronous would be our Web 4s on campus, where everyone is logged in at the same time. They might just be at home, in the library, or wherever. They're all logged in, same day, same time, with the instructor. Chapter 6 also talks about experiential learning, so things like studying abroad, internships, or service learning. Internships are a really powerful way to get a little bit of experience, your foot in the door, start networking, and really seeing if you like the field before you kind of commit to it. Some fields will have internships, some fields will have co-ops, some fields will have like student teaching. All of those are great ways, usually unpaid, but you may get lucky and come across a paid internship, but those are to let you know kind of how the field works and get some real life experience. So next, chapter 6 goes into career planning. and specifically talks about networking, which is connected to what the assignment for this week is going to be. So what is networking? It's establishing your relationships, personal and professional relationships with other people. I'm sure you've heard that phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And while that's true, I mean, it's important what you know, for sure. You have to know what you're talking about. You know, making those connections and knowing people often does lead to opportunities. And so networking is who you know, who knows you, and what you know. Because that's great if you know a lot of people, but if you don't know what you're talking about, that's not going to get you far either. So you want to make sure that you network. You want to make sure that you go to clubs in your field. You want to join organizations. You want to connect with your advisor. You want to talk to your classmates. All of those things will help you start to network. And then getting out there, going to job fairs, visiting places, all of that will help you network as well. You also want to create a professional presence online. Because employers do look at this. So, sometimes employers in social media, it's that 93% of recruiters reviewed social media profiles before making a decision, and they looked at things like inappropriate pictures, if you were talking poorly about coworkers or your place of employment. I like to show this in my classes. Here's like a web page that shows people who were fired for We'll do that later. People who were fired for using social media. So like, for instance, this waitress wasn't happy with the tip, so she went online and kind of disparaged her customers. Well, you can't do that, so her restaurant fired her. That one hopefully is very obvious. This is the New England Patriots cheerleader, drew some inappropriate stuff all over this gentleman, posted it online, and she is no longer a cheerleader. So you can kind of see like lots of examples. Yeah, this one's a teacher. She wrote that she works in the most ghetto school in Charlotte, fired. Another one about education. A student and a teacher, a high school teacher, were friends on Facebook. He called the student sexy. Big no-no. So this teacher, all she did was post pictures of her drinking alcohol and was fired. So lots of examples of how social media can actually either prevent you from getting a job or it can cause you your job. So you want to make sure you're creating that professional presence. So how do you do that? Well, go through, check your privacy settings, make sure that you're using a professional photo and email address. My favorite example of an email address, I had a student years ago whose email address was poledancer01 at Yahoo. Now, obviously, that there's some connotation there, but he was a firefighter, and so he thought pole dancer was a cute kind of firefighting connection. Well, some people don't necessarily think of pole dancer as a firefighter, so you want to make sure you have a more professional sounding email address. Maybe get a LinkedIn account. That's kind of the professional social media. Follow people in the field, check your posts, things like that. Something else you want to try is having an elevator speech. You'll talk about this in chapter 6. It is kind of like if you were to write it out, like maybe a paragraph. When you talk it, 30 seconds to a minute. It's basically kind of just really going over your key accomplishments, your goals. You can be creative, you can be funny, just know who you're talking to. And it's one of these things where if you're at like a job fair, for instance, or in an interview even, and they say, okay, tell me about yourself. You don't have to sit there and go, You have this elevator speech already in your proverbial back pocket. You already know what you're going to say, and you can just say, yeah, my name is Linda. I have this XYZ degree. Here are my goals coming up. So you have it ready to go. So chapter 6 will talk to you more about an elevator speech, and I encourage you to write one, to craft one up. Spend a couple minutes and write it out. Even if you don't have a lot of experience yet, you can still talk about what skills you have, what education you do have or are working toward, and just what in general you were trying to accomplish one day. So that's a nice thing to have. Also with networking, we talked a little bit about this just a few minutes ago, how to strengthen your network. Go to events, join organizations, volunteer, join clubs, go to extracurricular activities whenever they start up again. So there are lots of ways to strengthen your network. And then some job search tips. You want to have your resume ready. You want to have a nice cover letter. You want to kind of hone your resume per employer. It's not always great to send the exact same resume out because you might want to tweak it a little bit based on who you're sending it to. And I'm going to plug career services again here real quick. Down at the bottom, career services I'm going to plug them again, as you can utilize them to help you get your resume ready, practice for your interview, get some information about job searches, or just call and check in with them and see, what you can do. Are there internships available? So utilize that office for sure. It's to your advantage. All right, Chapter 6 also goes into financial planning, because that's a big part of collegiate life, and knowing the difference between, different kinds of financial aid, subsidized, unsubsidized loans, different scholarships, grants. I do want to show you another thing. I know, sorry, I'm clicking around a little bit, but under admissions, paying for college, scholarships, guys, some of this money literally sits here just waiting for people to fill out scholarships. And even if it's a $250 scholarship, I mean, that's books. That's one less expense you have to pay every semester. So here's a scholarship list and information if you want to look through there. Lots of different scholarships. Here's the general ones. A lot of them are scholar awards or based on your GPA if you're a College Credit Plus student. And then here are degree-related scholarships. So if you're in business, look at all those scholarships you could apply for. And then there's scholarships for specific populations of people, or you're a parent, you're a veteran, you are, diversity scholarship, lots of them. And some people will kind of wince at this because they might have to write a paper. If you spend a couple hours writing a paper for a scholarship and you end up getting $500, I would say that's time well invested. So the scholarship application is right there, and there's more information there. So really, honestly, look into that. A lot of the applications are coming up, in the springtime. So you want to kind of look and see, start thinking about it now. Start thinking about that opportunity. So really do take advantage of that. So, look at those. College, even though it is expensive, it does have a pretty high return on investment. So you are putting money and time and effort into it, but typically you have a high return on that investment. And then establishing good credit, making sure that you know what your credit is, which that's another thing I'm going to show you. If you don't know what your credit score is, if you Google free credit estimator, MyFICO is a good one. You do not have to enter any personal information. It really does just ask you some questions. I could fill it out right now, and I'm just going to randomly click in here. These are not really my answers, but you can, I don't think I'm going to get a very good score. Okay, so you can go through it again. I didn't enter any personal information. I didn't give my social, my name, but it's going to give you an estimate. And so that is important. It's going to give you some information about, what does that look like? So you do want to be up like in this area, but our chapter will talk about, how do you, first of all, build your credit? Like if you have none, how do you get credit? And then how do you build on that? So it'll give you some tips there. It'll also talk about budgeting, because just like time management and, energy management, you have to also money manage during college, making sure that you have a budget to avoid debt. Make sure that you're purchasing based off of logic and not emotions. So that is Chapter 6. And again, like I always say, please make sure you spend time looking at Chapter 6 on your own, read through it, especially parts that you maybe need to brush up on. All right, 2 assignments this week, both due by Sunday. Completing both will earn you week 13 full credit attendance. Only one will earn you half credit. The first one is the expect me to do what assignment. So it'll pop open into this. In a face-to-face class, we do a networking activity. Well, that's not an option, obviously, with us online. So instead, it talks about like networking. It talks about the 3 Ps. What to do in terms of networking and interview situations. Prepare, practice, and pull yourself together. So you'll read a little bit more about the 3 Ps there. And then down here, you're going to see a scenario. So you'll read this scenario, and based on the scenario, what did the main character, Pradeep, do in terms of preparation, practice, and pulling himself together? So what did he do to prepare? What did he do to practice? How did he pull himself together? So you're basing that all off that scenario right there. And then underneath that, what would you do in a future networking or career interview situation? How should you or do you prepare? How do you or should you practice? And how should you pull yourself together? So that's what you're doing for the you expect me to do what So read through the first page and then read the scenario and answer these questions about the scenario and then about yourself. The second assignment you were doing for this week is your college resource reflection on MyStark State. So you're going to go to MyStark State, which per usual, it timed me out. I promise I was just in there. You're going to get into MyStark State, and the reason I have you do this as a reflection is because so often people go right to my stuff and they look through their grades or they look through that kind of information. I'm going to encourage you to click around a little bit more. Go into academic support. See what other resources are there and maybe you didn't know of. I know we talked about a lot of them through this semester, but there might be some in here that you're not aware of. Take a look at that academic support tab. Take a look through the campus tab, the communications, the help desk is a good one. So really click around, spend even just 5 minutes just kind of looking around and seeing what else is in MyStark State besides My Stuff, unless you really truly are not familiar with the My Stuff tab. Look around and see. So that's what you're doing for your reflection. So visit the page, see what other relevant or helpful information you can find, and in your reflection, talk about what you discovered. Talk about the different tabs or resources or information. Don't just list it. Don't just sit there and tell me, here's what it has. Like, I know it. I've used MyStark State for several years now, so tell me what was interesting or helpful or new to you. All right, so that is week 13, friends. You are reading chapter 6, and then by Sunday the 29th, you are completing the You Expect Me to Do What and the college resource reflection. And I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. All right, bye.